Hey, what's going on? Rocking my Amoeba hoodie today with my Amoeba toque? No, Amoeba's not a sponsor of the channel. I just really like Amoeba. Hey, so what is the most iconic house in all of horror, ladies and gentlemen? Well, I'm going to give you my answer, at least what I think it is, and more importantly, how I came to that conclusion. And to be honest, I don't think my answer is what you think it's going to be. That movie is a shit show. What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. It's all theater of the mind. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. So what is the most iconic house in all of horror? Well, first let me preface this video by saying this. I was having a conversation with Tony Michael of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit about a month or so ago, and he was having a debate with some people he knew on this exact topic, and he was sharing their answers with me and all that information, and I tended to agree with Tony and his thoughts. We tend to see, eye to eye on most things, not everything. I mean, that would be really boring, but most things we do, and I've never really even thought about that. So I went to my circle, to some filmmakers and some horror, people, and asked them that question as well. And then I shared that information with Tony, and we sort of came to the same general consensus that by and large now, not everybody, but generally, people tended to, when answering that question, what they think is the most iconic house in all of horror, they tended to think fast and answer quickly. And it was very apparent to me and to Tony that generally now, people seem to be answering from a place of emotional attachment. So, for example, if your favorite horror movie was Halloween, you'd say the Myers house. If it was Elm Street, you'd say the Elm Street house, and so on and so forth. And really, when you think about it, that's not really an accurate, per se, an objective look on what could be perceived as the most iconic house in all of horror. And then the question really becomes that answering that question should be answered with another question. Because if I was asked that, I would probably answer with a question. And that question would be, well, hang on a sec. What is the measuring stick? Like, how are you measuring? How are you determining what is the most iconic house in all of horror? Is it determined by most people's favorite? Is it determined by the house that appeared in the most movies? Is it determined by the house that appeared in the most movies that made the most money? Is it determined by, like, what is the yardstick here, right? Because really, at the end of the day, you want to be as objective as you possibly can. Most of this is going to be subjective anyway, but you want to be as objective as you possibly can. So I came to the conclusion that I think the best way to go about it would be to think of what would be the one house that would probably be the most recognizable to the masses, not just the horror community. That's too easy. But the most recognizable house to the vast majority of people, even non-horror community enthusiasts or people. So, in other words, you take a photo out onto the street and you ask a random person, what's the one house that the vast majority of people are probably going to instantly recognize? And now that doesn't mean that every other house isn't iconic in their own right. They're all iconic in their own right, but we're asking what is the most iconic? And I think the measuring stick has to be what I just said. There's other ways to do it, but I think this is a good way to do it. And I think the answer really is the Psycho house. I think by and large, at the end of the day, the Psycho house has been able to penetrate the pop culture consciousness like no other house has before. And when you think of that house, I mean, there's two life-size replicas at both Universal Studios in Orlando and Hollywood. I mean, the one in Hollywood is the Psycho house, right? The one in Orlando is just, a replica. But I mean, it just, the way Psycho penetrated the pop culture in 1960, the way it's remained, I mean, the Psycho house has become a symbol. It's not just a symbol for the movies anymore, it's a symbol for Hitchcock, it's a symbol for, you know, the slasher genre, it's a symbol for horror, it's a symbol for, it's like it's a symbol. And I think that symbols are universal. Symbols are a universal language, that's true. Symbols and mathematics. And so that symbol of horror has been able to penetrate the pop culture consciousness like no other house has been able to do. So I think if you were to look at it from that perspective, what would be the most iconic house in all of horror? It's probably the Psycho house. Then followed by probably either the Elm Street house or the Amityville horror house. Now, there are other houses in horror as well. I mean, you could go back to the Hammer films, you could go back to, you know, House on Haunted Hill. I mean, but we're talking about films that have really dug into the pop culture, that are recognizable. And I think those two homes are likely to come next. And again, that doesn't mean that, you know, when I say Psycho is the most iconic, that the other film or the other houses are not iconic. We're talking about the most based on a set of variables. And then the Myers house. Sorry, Halloween fans. I'm sure somebody thought I was going to say the Myers house, but the Myers house would be maybe not even next. I mean, but at the very least, at the very most, the Myers house would be fourth, at the very most. But I think you could, like, if you tackle into horror films, you might find the Myers house moving down the list even further. And there's good reason for that. I mean, the Myers house was really only in one movie. Now, it was in Halloween 2 from 1981, but barely. And then after that, it was a different house. It had a different look in almost every movie it was in. So, you know, when you think of the Myers house, it's iconic. It is an iconic horror house. But because it was really only in that first movie, really, and it changed in all the other films, it didn't have the longevity that something like an Amityville horror house had or a Elm Street house had, because the Elm Street house never changed. I mean, it changed from the actual house to a set to a miniature to, you know, whatever the case is, but the look of it never changed. And same with the Amityville horror house. Now the Amityville horror house, of course, the actual house, they've changed the half moon windows to deter people from trying to find out where it is. But that was iconic. I mean, that was like the eyes of that house. So there's no doubt that those two would be neck and neck probably next. And then the Myers house may fall down the list depending on what other homes we can think of, and then think of the criteria and all that kind of stuff. So that is my answer at the end of the day, that the most iconic house in all of horror right now, I think, is the Psycho house, because I think it's the one house that you can take all those iconic homes and the vast majority of people would be able to recognize the Psycho house the most. The most. That doesn't mean you're not going to get people recognizing any of the other houses, but I think the most. So that's how I feel anyway. Anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. What do you think is the most iconic house in all of horror, ladies and germs? Try to do your best to remove your emotional attachment from it, right? Because it would be very easy for me to say, oh, the Myers house, the Myers house, the Myers house, right? It'd be very easy for me to do that because it's my favorite horror movie of all time. I love that house. It's an iconic house. But I gotta be like, okay, let's look at this a bit more objectively, right? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can at facebook.com/manythingsdavemcrae. That's where I tend to post in the meantime and in between time when I'm not posting here. All my links are in the description, as well as links to the Indiegogo campaign for Dylan's New Nightmare, the official Facebook page for It's Me, Billy, the Black Christmas fan film I'm in development on, my Instagram, my Twitter, my official website, my IMDb, fuck, it's all down there. Just go all down there and click and follow me, whatever the hell you want to do. Hey, anybody from Amoeba watching, I love your store, man. Hey, if you're ever in Hollywood, California, Sunset Boulevard, Amoeba, awesome shit. It's got tons of pop culture tons of pop culture memorabilia, vinyl and CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays and 4Ks and fucking books and shit. It's an awesome place. Check it out. There you go. Free advertisement right there for Amoeba. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.